I was pretty happy
Kyle, say thank you.
with.
Roman, thank you.
No problem. So, you had
Welcome back to the fourth episode of the Bucher's Batch of Boys podcast. I'm your host, Nick Bucher. I've got with me my regular partner, my life partner, Jared Kyle Jordan, and a special guest, Roman Kyle. How the hell are you?
doing great, doing great.
Doing great, Nick. Thanks for joining, Roman.
Yeah, no problem. I'm excited to be on.
Yeah, Roman is our first guest, probably going to be the only guest because I don't know if anybody's going to be able to keep up with him after this. Roman, why don't you tell us a little about yourself? Anything that somebody in the league who hasn't had a chance to talk to you in depth doesn't know about you, and we'll get started with a surprise first segment.
Yeah, so I think pretty much the only person I know in the league is Griffin. He was actually my student. I'm a pharmacist, and I was a preceptor for him. So we hit it off. I gave him an A if he promised to let me in the league, and eventually I got in. So thanks, Griffin, for that. Well-deserved A. And so, yeah, so I was born in Russia, grew up in Chicago, and I'm a Cubs fan, Bears, Bulls fan. I take my sports pretty seriously. So like I'll only say I'm a fan of one team, even though I live in Baltimore. I've been out here for since 2009. So I'll root for the O's and the Ravens, but I'm a Cubs fan and I'm a Bears fan.
Very
I love it.
good.
Yeah, I got to say um, how I got into baseball was the home run chase of 1998 between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. So, I was loving watching Sammy Sosa hit all those home runs. He always did the hop after launching one. So,
It was patented.
um, yeah, one of my greatest memories. I went to a baseball game with my buddy, and we went there early. And Kid K, Kerry Wood, you guys remember him?
Vaguely, yeah.
Vaguely 20 strikeout game. So I guess
Yep.
I'm dating myself a little bit, but I'm
Kyle,
probably like
remember?
the
Kyle's
oldest
being
one.
silly. He remembers.
So yeah, me and my friend were like standing right by the field. And I yell out, I was like, "Hey, Carrie!" And then he looked at my way, and I just froze completely. I was like awestruck that he like even looked in my direction. And he threw us a ball, and I kind of like stole it from my friend a little bit. So we got his autograph and Roy Oswald. That's another name for you guys.
Oh man, Roy
So
Oswalt.
yeah, exactly.
Dude, he was the man for a
Um,
long time there.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
That
it sounds like
that Carey story too. That's not quite Anthony Rendon type of interaction, but that's a pretty cool interaction.
No, no, I didn't get slapped or
Yeah,
threatened or.
cool
well, it
man.
sounds like some bribery and some collusion to get Griffin that A. I know he's
I'm sure
not
Griffin
a,
did not earn that A. Yeah.
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 You just wanted that league spot, huh?
Pretty much, pretty much.
Only other
We're
follow-up question I've got
we're
for you,
best
man. How
friends
was that
now.
a? How was the Cubs World Series when that happened? Was that 2014? Right?
2016,
2016. Pardon me.
2016.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So it took 108 years to get there. So
Where were
that
you?
was actually I was here in my house, and I just had a baby boy. It was my first kid. He
Oh,
was like less than he's a couple months old. And so my theory was that anytime I have a baby boy, then the Cubs will win the World Series. That's my good luck charm. So I had two more boys, but there's no more World Series. But that was insane. That last game 7, it was like back and forth. They had that like
one of
rain
the all-time best
delay.
games.
Yeah, man, it was wild. I was getting calls from friends. Like it was 1 o'clock over here, 1 a.m. I'm like, kids sleeping, so I'm trying not to scream, but
Love it.
it was incredible.
Awesome, man. All right, well, we'll stop grilling you here. We talked about some of the things we're going to do in this podcast, but before we jump into the rankings of everybody's teams after the draft and after the first couple weeks or first couple days of waivers, and before we do some blind resumes, Roman, being the prepared guy he is, has a blind resume for me and Kyle. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Roman, and me and Kyle are going to try to guess it. What you got for us?
All right,
No
so
cheating, Kyle.
I've got a bunch of random stats, and let's see if you can just or random thoughts here, and see if you can guess it. So this is a four-time All-Star. Career splits of 280 batting average, 377 OBP, 502 slug. So he's got some juice there.
Yeah.
Scott Boras client. He won Rookie of the Year and then MVP the following year. Let's see. There's some kind of random thoughts.
Wait,
So
is
I
it
don't know if
Bellinger?
that's no, no, not a bad guess. Not a bad guess. Number two overall pick in the 2013 MLB draft.
Was it?
He had a career
Oh,
high
Chris Bryant.
39
Chris
home
Bryant.
runs. Chris Bryant,
Chris
yeah.
Bryant. Yep.
So my thing that
Gotcha,
was going to
Kyle.
give it
Ha.
away was I can't see Kyle. Is he?
He's all worked up. He's pouting. He's blaming the connection. He says the connection was good. He would have gotten me. Bullshit, Kyle.
The thing that I knew was going to give it away, I'm pretty sure, was that he was Las Vegas. He grew up in Las Vegas, teammates with Bryce Harper and like
Oh
Little League.
yes, that would have. I would have gotten that one too.
Yeah.
Good shit, dude.
All right, that's my Cubbies.
Oh, I should have thought of that too. Actually, makes sense.
A little bias.
How in on
Just a
Brian are
little
you
bit.
this year? Do you like Brian for this year in fantasy?
I do, man. He's very like up and down. In terms of like staying on the field. You know, he's had to fight through some injuries. And then sometimes the pitchers figure him out. He's got to make adjustments. So he'll have a good year and then a down year. Last year was an injury year, but he showed some promise in Colorado, right? So you got to think that he's a slugger in Colorado. If he stays healthy, the numbers are going to be there. So I think the power and all that stuff is going to come back to this year.
I think I generally agree with you for the most part. Colorado's like the best place possible to go.
Yeah.
But all right, awesome. I love that, Roman. Thank you for bringing that. That was a surprise to me and Kyle. We found out about that like less than 5 minutes ago. So way to keep us on our toes.
Yeah.
For the scoreboard, Nick 1, Kyle 0. Stop the count.
There you go.
Without further ado, though, we're going to move on to our first probably lengthy segment of the show tonight. We're going to talk about over the first weekend or so this season in the draft. We're going to re-go through, and Kyle and I talked some about like good keepers we thought, good positions going into the draft, but we're going to go through who we think going into the first week or so are the best teams. And Roman's going to contribute where he's got thoughts. He has some opinions, some strong thoughts he's going to share with us too. Me and Kyle have more detailed notes about all of you. But I think what we'll do then, let's start out. Kyle, why don't you tell me who your number one team is? Who is the favorite for this season?
You're totally milking this, Nick. So we talked a little bit before we hopped on the show. Just making sure our lists didn't clash too much. Make sure we had some unique takes, although many times they're pretty close. So Nick is amping this up because my number one team, as it stands right now, is Nick's team. I think there have been a couple of moves, trades following the draft that have been pretty favorable for Nick's team. I think, as always, he drafted very well. I think he picked up guys like Lindor, which are big names. He just got Salvi and Muncy in a trade. I think that's a huge bonus. And then right off the bat, he has four of my top 18 hitters in Acuna, Vlad, Pete Alonso, and Austin Riley. So in a 13-team league, I think when you have four guys in the top 18, at least for my personal hitter rankings, that's going to be difficult to overcome amongst the other league participants. And then also, he's not half bad on the pitching side either, with Strider, Bieber, and Scherzer as the three top dogs. That's hard to overcome. So just wanted to call that out. I also will talk a little bit about team build, and specifically in this league, it differs a little bit versus other leagues, but I think Nick and I view things similarly in that we both find top heavy teams to be pretty favorable as long as you're willing to be pretty active when it comes to picking up players off the waiver. So I also give Nick some bonus points there. I do like to see that top heavy talent.
Kyle, thank you. I never want the segment to end. Roman, do you have any thoughts? Do you feel I actually have a different number one, but before I go with who I think is number one, do you have anything to add? Do you think my team's terrible? Do you think I'm a contender?
No, I actually had you as number one as well. I think the thing that stood out most to me was the star hitters that you had. So my usual style I found that works like for baseball is the stars and scrubs approach, which is kind of why I like Griffin's draft too. Kind of a side note, I know you guys mentioned that last time where he jumped on it early and then took a vacation till the end where he got a bunch of dollar players. But yeah, I mean, I think you got Vlad, Pete Alonso, Austin Riley, Lindor, Acuna, Cedric Mullins, who's no chump. Got Jordan Walker there as well, Salvador Perez. So I mean, you're pretty good across the board in terms of your hitting. The other thing that comes with that is hitters are usually a little bit more consistent, a little less injury prone. So it kind of sets you up for a little bit longer success. I think you know all about injury, given Edwin Diaz and Liam Hendricks. So kind of a rough preseason for you in that term because it looked like you were sitting pretty with those saves and holds. But yeah, Shane Bieber, I'm not big on him, but he keeps producing. So I know he lost velocity. That was a big thing on him last year. But I think he was able to adjust and just kind of like be able to pitch despite losing that velocity. Scherzer's always a dog, and Strider's if he gets 200 innings, he probably get like 500 Ks this year.
I hope that is right about Strider. And I'm with you, actually. I think the point you just made about Bieber is a point that is so accurate. I remember last year when he first had the significant velocity decrease, I was terrified. And frankly, if somebody had made me a reasonable, like I was trying to trade him a year ago in April because his velocity dropped so much, and it's just lucky that no one took me up on a sell low because I was really shocked at the fact that he more or less still did pretty well last year. And so again, knock on wood, hopefully he can continue to do that because his velocity was down again against Seattle this past week in his first start. So hopefully he can just continue pitching into like the 70-mile-an-hour range and just make it work anyway. But until then, I feel like he might be on borrowed time. I love that though. I'm excited about that. Just because we're going through all of us, we'll stop talking about me because no one's here for the podcast hosts too much. I had myself as the third team, but I did have a top three in my opinion. My top team, I'm hoping you guys didn't feel super differently because I'm going to feel a little bit silly if we don't feel at all similarly. I thought it was McTaggart, who I thought had the best setup going into it. He won it last year. I think Brendan's probably in the best position. Again, I don't think it's significantly better than the other myself or the other team. I'll say who I have as number two, but I think he has the best outfielders in the league total cumulative with Jordan. And I mean, you make a good point. Both of you did mention I have some high level top hitters, but Jordan and Tucker is about as good as he gets too. I mean, that's two of the top, like 8 hitters in the league. And then to go with those two, he's also got Brian Reynolds, who I think is incredible. If he gets traded, it's even better for him. Christian Yelich, who, especially with the ability to steal bases a little bit more easily now, Christian Yelich, even if he's not a 40 home run guy, Christian Yelich probably going to give you some steals, double, maybe even 20-20 type guy. And Quan, who he stole from me after I cut him last year. Quan is rock solid to help you out in batting average, top of that Cleveland lineup. I think I generally like his approach a lot too. I tried to mimic it because I think it's a successful one of lots of power and speed guys who can give you a couple things everywhere because there's a couple teams I don't like as much we'll talk about later who I think have one or two guys that give them all their power, or one or two guys that give them all their steals, and you just set yourself up for risk if someone gets hurt. But by having Tucker, Dansby, Francisco Liriano, Harrison Bader, Christian Yelich, all those guys are 15-15 or better type dudes. So you can lose one or two. Like Bader's hurt right now. Loriano is not starting for him most days so far to start the season. He's still getting power and speed. I think I really like, it's not fun, we all agree, but I think you're generally correct, both of you, that the best way to do this is to have stars and scrubs so you can be able to pick up some amazing players early on and get those great keeper values for the next year too, plus bank some solid stats. And I think I like my top three. I like to better out Garrett Cole as my other guy for top 4 at starters. But I think he has the best top 4 of any starting pitchers. I know Corbin Burns didn't do well in opening day, new to Jacob deGrom, but Burns, deGrom, Clayton Kershaw, and Logan Gilbert. It was a little better when he had Julio Urias before he traded with Kyle, but that's still a really damn good 1 through 4. That is a deep 1 through 4. And he has quality relievers too. I think he's set up for the future with Grayson Rodriguez, who in real time, just in the last hour here, Kyle Bradish got hurt. We could see Grayson Rodriguez in the big leagues like this next week or two. I think he's going to smash when he gets up here. And Jackson Chourio is an amazing keep too. You throw that in there with guys like Shane Baz, Frankie Montas, Bader on the IR right now. He's using his IR effectively. I think really the only spot in this team I don't love is like Josh Bell, Yandy Diaz, Spencer Torkelson as his first third base guys, but even they are fine. Like they are completely fine players. Yandy is super useful. He's like Quan, but first and third base. So, and Josh Bell's been great more than he's not the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, he's had a couple stretches where he's not been great, but he's been incredible and he's been consistent most of it too. So I think he is the best, most complete team. But again, I do think there's 2 teams, myself included, with him. We'll go over, I guess, the next, if you guys don't have McTaggart 1 or 2, I can do my 2 next. We can work down from there.
Yeah. My recommendation is, as we continue down, we should just use your list, Nick, and I'll shout out where we differ on each team. And I think maybe Brendan could be a good place to start here. So I definitely agree in terms of the tier. We'll agree. We'll see if we agree on the third team. But Brendan is my number 3 overall team. The defending champ is obviously looking strong. We've been talking about this all off season and now post draft. I do like his team a lot. I think Brendan had a decent amount of money. So while he does have, scrubs and stars, the top heavy approach initially, he also did level out his team quite a bit. And he has a lot of depth, I would say. So some of those guys who you highlighted who maybe aren't his strongest suit, like Torkelson, I think it's still really beneficial to have some of those post hype candidates at low cost. And those are the types of players that could potentially keep his team moving forward into the future. At $8, Torkelson would be obviously a great keeper if he breaks out. And then I agree on the pitching side, something sometimes we don't talk about enough. The fact that he has Corbin Burns and then he's able to go out and spend his money on getting DeGrom, I think is a really great pairing. DeGrom is obviously someone who can actually win you your league if he plays. Obviously, he didn't have a great opening day, but I think we can throw that out the window for now. I'm really interested to see how Brendan's team does. Roman, do you have any color on Brendan?
Yeah, he definitely stood out for me as well. My scribble over here, he was a little bit lower in the rankings, but I do agree with you guys with the solid lineup. The one thing I got to say about his pitching, he's got a huge amount of firepower, right? So you got DeGrom, you got Burns, Gilbert, Kershaw. The one thing there, he's exposed to injury, right, with those players. So that's kind of the narrative. Like, do you want to take the risk with DeGrom? Kershaw, he's probably going to get 20 to 25 starts. There's no way he's getting 30 this year, right? The other thing you got to look at is those innings that you're going to get from them are going to be really quality innings, right? They're going to be good ratios. DeGrom strikes out 50% of the batters that he faces, which for a starter is like absolutely ridiculous. I mean, please use this MLB at bat subscription that I got you guys and watch DeGrom pitch if you haven't gotten a chance to do that. Because that man is an artist. He'll paint like 99 in a like bottom away corner, 3 pitches in a row. The guy will foul one off, and then the 4th pitch, you'll see this nasty slider, and the guy just looks silly swinging at it. I mean, watch him. Like it's incredible. People are kind of afraid of going after these types of pitchers because of the injury risk, right? What are you going to do later on when he inevitably gets hurt? But I guess in the Roto League, this is my first Roto League actually. But you kind of set yourself up for success later on, right? So if you get all these quality innings in the beginning, you're already going to be like pretty well off in the strikeouts. You're already going to be pretty well off the ratios. You can kind of pick up some of these multi-inning relievers that have good ratios and high K rates themselves, and kind of like coast a little bit at the end. But he's got Grayson coming off, from the minors, Montas coming back from injury, so he's got those replacements like built in, so he doesn't really have to rely on the waiver wire. And then Kodai Senga with the Ghost Fork, he had a pretty good debut as well. So I really like the pitching staff here.
That's a great point you just made. I want to highlight that because you're absolutely right. I think in a Roto League, unlike head-to-head where you have to play in a playoff setup, you're really in trouble if DeGrom's hurt in September. I mean, that really can hurt you. But in this, man, if you bank half a season of DeGrom and then just use a streamer from July on, that's pretty damn valuable too, especially in a starts capped league. I mean, it's a really, really good point because especially I think one of the most underrated parts of the scoring format we have is where you have a starts limit and you get benefit for quality starts is you want guys like DeGrom who might break down potentially, or Kershaw who might break down. But when they pitch, they will go deep into games and have a chance to give you amazing ratios and a win and a quality start. Because more starts of 5 innings or 4 innings is not worth limited starts of 6 innings or 7 innings. It's not the same.
Yeah, and there are 200 starts available for each team. So, I mean, you need to make use of them. And there's value out there on the waiver wire. You can play matchups if need be. So I agree. I think the replacement value is good. And I did also just want to shout out to the Coliseum. Thank you for the MLB TV.
Yeah.
I will enjoy watching DeGrom. So thank you for that. Very generous.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, Roman is the hero. That was so incredibly sweet of Roman to do that because I forgot to mention this in our last podcast. Even me and Kyle talked about it pre-show. Opening day morning, Roman, you email all of us and say, Merry Christmas. I'm the man. Here you go. Good luck this year. I feel like if it's not me, it's got to be Roman who wins this league. That's kind of where I'm at as far as like rooting interest. It's like me, Roman, everybody else. So
Well, I think that's a perfect segue. So if Brendan is number two, Griffin, or if I just gave it away, I guess. I just gave it away. I have so much love for Griffin. I can't keep his name out of
stop
my
talking
mouth.
about Griffin all the time, Kyle.
So Nick, if Brendan is your number two, Griffin has to be your number three, right?
Well, Brendan's my one. Yeah. Griffin is my two.
Oh,
I am my own three. But I think that is
okay.
the top three.
Got it. Got it.
So, yeah, I have Griffin as two. Kyle's correct. I think my points for Griffin, I'll just go through real quick and I'll turn it over to you guys. He did the best version, I think, of like deep stars and scrubs. Roman highlighted. He didn't do anything for like an hour after the first 10 minutes of the draft. But he also has some just incredible players. I mean, we talked about, for me and Brennan's team, some of those top round one, round two value hitters. Jose Ramirez, Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto. Shohei Ohtani in a daily league, too, is easily the number one pick. So that's almost like having two first-round picks. Jazz Chisholm, who he should not have for me. These are all tier 1 or 2 guys, in my opinion. Then you throw in some amazing guys with them, like Jeremy Pena, who is dirt cheap. Alejandro Kirk, he is built incredibly well. Taylor Ward, awesome. Great, cheap player, hitting in front of that lineup with Trout and Ohtani healthy right now. Rowdy Tellez, hella power there. And I think that segues to the next point there, too. I mean, Jazz, Ramirez, Jeremy Pena, Juan Soto, who I didn't even say yet, Shohei Ohtani. There's like, and then you include guys like John Birdie looking at his team right now. There were probably 7 or 8 guys who I feel good get double-digit steals, if not more. So he has lots of ways to have an injury or two happen, because that will happen, and not be in trouble in that category. They're all mostly power speed threats too. It would be no shock to me if, Jose Ramirez hits 40 home runs. He's basically done that. If Shohei Ohtani leads baseball in home runs, that would not be a huge upset. Juan Soto is definitely going to probably hit 30, 35 home runs minimum. Like, there's very little risk, I think, for either power or speed with him. I think his offense is built incredibly, for a stars and scrubs approach, I think his offense is built about as good as you can do, mitigating risk. His rotation also is no slouches. I mean, again, top 4, similar to Brendan's. The reason I think they're probably a little bit better positioned than I am now without Garrett Cole. You have Aaron Nola, Shane McClanahan, Zach Gallen, Rodon's on his way back, Carlos Rodon. That's a really formidable 1 through 4. And my final point, just again, I mentioned it briefly, but Alejandro Kirk, who he stole from me in a trade this past week, and Rowdy Tellez, the karma you have when you have guys built like that on your roster is really good for baseball. That's about as good as you can do as far as building a roster of guys who are well shaped. So I think he's in a great spot.
2 club dogs just mashing the ball. I love it.
It is. It's literally the epitome of 2 club dogs.
Yeah. So I won't belabor the point. I like Griffin's team a lot. I have him second. Roman, what say you about your former student?
Yeah, I love me some Griffin. He's my newest best friend. I love the Jose Ramirez pick. Super consistent, good across the board. I think he took some very good risks with his scrubs approach. Right, he has a Outman, Fraley. He's got Yohan Moncada on a bounce back year likely. Rowdy Tellez, cheap power. I'm really liking that. Looking at the long game with Justin Dominguez as well. That was a pretty good pick. And I had my eyes on Luis Ortiz. I was thinking about keeping him, and I let him go. So thanks, Griffin, for stealing that. Best friends don't do that to each other, man.
Bad form, Griffin.
And then, so again, you got to worry about the injuries for the pitchers as always. One thing I'm kind of surprised across the league actually is the number of relief pitchers that you guys are using. I thought I got pretty good deals on the closers during the draft, but it turns out that I probably overspent a little bit by getting kind of like 2 high tier closers. So I'm interested to see kind of how you guys play, how everybody in the league plays out, like with this start limit and starting pitchers and balancing that out with the ratios from the relievers. But I had him as my number 2 team.
And just for clarity, Roman, you said it was me or it was McTaggart, your one?
You were my number 1.
Okay. So we have some similar thoughts so far. We'll move the ball off of Griffin. Who did, or I guess we want me to do my rankings. I'll do mine then. I think, though, it is worth mentioning. In my opinion, I don't know if Kyle and Roman strongly disagree. I think there is a top 3. Not to say that no one else can win this, but I do think the top 3 have a slightly better chance than everybody else. My number 4, and I have no idea if Kyle and Roman agree with this or not, so I'm just going to give it to you guys. We'll see what you guys say. It's Papa Sparky. It's Jack Minnis. I forget what his team name is in this league, but Jack Minnis. I think he has potentially the most power of all the teams. You have CJ Crone, who's already got 3 home runs away from cores, Marcus Semien, Rafael Devers, Willie Adames, Walker, Adolis Garcia, Renfroe. I mean, there are a whole bunch of guys there. All of those guys I just said, though, every single one of them, that's 8 dudes, all 29 plus homer projections, which projections aren't perfect, but I love the guys who can afford to lose a guy or two and still be in a great spot in the category, and he is the epitome of that for power. I think he's made smart early ads. Edward Julian's an amazing quick rise in the last couple of months of the offseason and early in spring training in the Minnesota Twins system to hold on to come midway through the year. I think d'Arnaud, he started every single game of the first 4 for the Braves. He's going to do really well. He's hitting cleanup tonight. I think d'Arnaud's an amazing ad. I know he's a catcher. You already have a catcher. It's a smart ad, though. He's going to probably play 130 games and just hit in the middle of that lineup. And I don't love, because I just shouted out how good his power is, he is banking a lot on Jorge Mateo. His speed is in a pretty average to below average spot. He's one of the worst teams, I think, in steals if Mateo doesn't play every day. But if Mateo does play, he led the American League last year in steals. If Mateo does, he already has like 4 in the first month or first week. It will not shock me at all if Mateo keeps his job and stays healthy. If Jack ends up being in the top, I don't know, 5 or 6 teams in steals while blowing everybody away in the power categories. Pitching, I think the reason he's not with the top teams I said earlier, it's fine. It's not special. I think Darvish, Manoah, Framber, Musgrove is a really solid 1 through 4, but it lacks the Corbin Burns or Ohtani type upside of some of the other McClanahan, Nola, DeGrom. It's not quite starting pitchers 1 everywhere. You got, I don't know, 4 top 20, top 25 guys, depending where you think Musgrove is when he comes back. I think it's a really solid team. I think it's not super top heavy or bottom heavy. And I think it's a team that I would be shocked if he doesn't finish in the top half or so. I think he's in a good spot. What say you guys?
So, Nick, I'm surprised to say this. So, I actually was going to make the opposite point. I do have the same tier as you, but one overarching point I wanted to make today was just the fact that maybe more so than ever, I think the league is much tighter. I think it's a tighter race, it's a closer race, and there are a lot of decent teams that could win it. So, while I think all of your points are interesting, and for those listening who don't know Jack is Stan the Man on our league. But Jack Menace, I actually have him 9th. I think he has a great team. I think he lacks some of the star power to really put him much higher for me. I know, Nick, we agree. Like Framber Valdez, we're both pretty high on him. So there are some key pitching assets who I really do like. I think Yu Darvish is actually often undervalued. Although he's, expensive here in this format for $34, I don't think that's really relevant to, this year in ranking.
Agreed.
I think, from a projection standpoint, he definitely has power. I just think that there are other teams who are stronger positioned in terms of providing value at the top dog level. So those top guys. And then you can continue to bring value in as needed from the waiver wire. I think you'll see as the year goes on, there are some teams that do that better than others. I don't think this is a knock on Jack's team. It is interesting because I have him a good bit lower. What are your thoughts, Roman?
Yeah, so usually I kind of look for a rival in a league. And coming in here, I only know Griffin. We've already established that he's my best friend. So it can't be Griffin. So being a Cubs fan, I'm looking at Stan the Man, and his icon is the Cardinals.
Oh, he's a Cardinals guy. Get him.
Yeah, immediately I don't like him. I'm sorry, Stan the Man. I forgot already what your actual name was.
Sorry, Mark. Roman's your daddy now.
So, I'm going to kind of like trash his team a little bit. My rankings only got as far as the top 6. He wasn't on there. So Stan the Man, you're not on my rankings. I'm sorry, man. I do like the Devers, Simeon. You are kind of low on the steals there. Pitching's mediocre. I think you have a lot of mediocre talent. You had kind of did a rankings of a number of star hitters that everybody had. And for the whole league, you had the least amount of star hitters and more average hitters, I think. So I'm sorry, Stan the Man. I think I just decided that you're going to be my rival.
Oh, I love this. Great insight from both of you. Clearly, I'm the odd one out here. I think I want to reiterate something Kyle said and just clarify. I made a point that I didn't intend to. When I say I think the top 3 are a little bit of their own tier, I think that just means it's like a 10% chance any of the three of them win versus probably like for the next 7 teams, 8%. I do agree with Kyle's point, and I think it's a really good one he's reiterating that this is probably, we said this last week, the most open I feel like this league has ever been. There's only a few teams where I think it's less than like a 5% chance they win. Even the bottom few teams we're going to get to in a little bit, I think they can win. I really do think that, actually. So great point clarifying that, Kyle. I think it's made very clear here that you guys don't even have him in your top half. I think he is the fourth best team. So naturally he'll finish like seventh and we'll all three be wrong. That's what's going to happen probably. I love that though. I love the rivalry here. And it's a great segue, Roman, by the way, because you were my fifth team. My fifth team is you going into this. I think I love your rotation. I think Ashcraft, great late ad there. Lance Lynn's a dog. Joe Ryan's an excellent guy who I like more the consensus. And I've already said this on this pod, so I won't belabor it too much, but I have a preseason Cy Young ticket on your boy, Jeffrey Springs, and it looks great after one start. He was probably the most impressive standout in the entire pitching side of fantasy baseball through the first weekend, I think. I love that dude. So maybe I'm a little bit higher on him than the average person, but even so, he was incredible. I didn't even say, by the way, your ace, Sandy Alcantara, who is a true SP1. So you've got really good starters, I think. I think also you're going to get a huge boost very soon when Tatis returns. Harper's going to be back probably by June, maybe by July, but probably by June. That's going to be a huge boost too. So your team's only going to get stronger as the year goes on. I think your power is probably the middle of the pack. But again, I think you're going to get replacement homers from guys while Tatis and Harper are coming back and end up being in the top half of the league in power anyway. I love the Nolan Gorman ad you made a couple of days ago. Great get. He was down my waterfall for guys I wanted, so wish I'd gotten him. Good job. He's a steal there. You also have two multiple catchers who I think are like top 8 catchers. So you have ammunition, in my opinion, to go out there and make a trade if you want to with somebody else too, potentially. So I think you're in a pretty good spot generally to finish in the top half and push for one of those top couple spots. Kyle, Roman, where do you guys see Roman? Roman, what do you think of yourself? I guess let's go to you first. I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this team. I do feel like I'm lacking in some power. I need Vinny P, the Italian breakfast, the Italian beef,
Oh, Kyle hates
Vinny
Italian beef.
Pasquantino.
Disgusting.
Kyle's a vegetarian. He's
one
never
of the
fucking heard
greatest
of him.
things. Oh, really?
No, I'm
No.
All right.
sorry.
Anyways, so yeah, so the Nolan, I was pretty left the draft without like any decent second baseman. I kind of had my hopes on Vaughn Grissom getting some playing time, but he got sent down. So I had to make a couple moves. So, Chris Taylor, I figured he was going to get some playing time with Gavin Lux going down. Nolan Gorman was a pretty big prospect last year. He had a hot start and then kind of fizzled out. So let's see if he can kind of like find that power again. And if I hit on that, then, that's a pretty good lotto ticket. And then the other thing I don't feel too good about was outfielders. I think I overpaid a little bit for Chris Bryant, but it's a 5 outfielder league, so these guys are generally less available and kind of more expensive. So we'll see how that goes. And Harper, I think I overpaid a little bit for him in the draft as well, but he's pretty much a guaranteed keeper. I don't think there's a lot of universes out there where he's not going to, even if he has a mediocre second half of this year, there's no way he's going to be like a $20 player next year, given his like track record. The pitching side, I love me some Sandy Alcantara, or Alcantara. I can't say his name, but that's another MLB at bat watch. If you guys ever use that. Just watching him consistently sit like 98, 99. He's got the sinker at 98 and he's got a changeup at 92 that just kind of like falls off the plate and he's got a lot of arm side movement. So I got my man Hayden Wisniewski. Got a good Cub. I think Cubs pitching development's kind of turning around. So I like my odds, but I don't like my start. I was like 11th a couple of days ago. I think I'm up to 8th in the standings. I know it's only like 3 or 4 days into this thing, but I'm already standings watching here.
I think after a great start, before I let Kyle speak to your team, we're going to lose the Zoom in a minute. I'm going to make a new link. I'll send you guys in 1 second. We'll pick it back up with Kyle talking about your team. Okay.
All right.
Talk to you guys soon. And we are back. Thanks for the ad sponsor, Manscaped, or whatever you guys heard there from Blue Wire. Kyle, what do you think of Roman's team?
Yeah, so I won't belabor the point with some of the same stars that we went through just now, but I think, Nick, we actually have the same ranking here. I have Roman 5th overall. I'm pretty high on his team for many of the same reasons you all listed. One shout out to Lance Lynn. We didn't mention him. I think often he's pretty underrated. I do like him this year. And then I did like to just mention as well, Tatis coming back on 420, cough, cough, and Bryce Harper as well for $30. Roman, you mentioned that he's a little bit on the pricey side, $33. I don't. I actually regret not pushing further into Bryce. I think he's a great keeper value, and he will do a great job in anchoring your team once he's back, maybe as soon as June. So I think that was a great buy as well.
Kyle makes a great point. I want to make sure I reiterate too there. Lance Lynn. That's a Brad dog guy, the way I talked about Rowdy. That build Rowdy and Kirk have too. You want guys like that. Lance Lynn's one of those dudes. They're just good karma. They work well in fantasy baseball. But all right, if we're going to keep with my ranks then, so I had Roman 5, and it sounds like we mostly generally agree there. Middle of the pack, a little bit on the higher side for Roman. Good job, Roman. Great draft, great early setup. You're in a good spot. My number 6. I'm going for that field goal yet again. Hopefully, Susan pull the ball away because it's Charlie Brown. Raymond Sr., Uncle Raymond. Number 2 last year, by the way. This guy finished second in our league last year. So, Uncle Raymond, you're in here. Some quick hitters I have for you. Some notes I have on your team. Tons of speed. He could lead the league in stolen bases, I think. He has probably the most balanced, a number of guys doing it too. So I don't see many scenarios where he's bad in speed. 9 guys getting double-digit 12-plus steals here. 4 guys, 20-plus steals. That's before he even adds anybody. There's going to be so many guys early on who steal bases in a flurry in the first week or two as we're adjusting to the new stolen base rules. So if he adds any more, he's only going to get further ahead than that. I think he probably wins steals, or at least in the top half in steals, pretty easily. And his power, I think, is capable. Now, Judge is going to probably hit 40-plus if he stays healthy, conservatively. But even without him, Suarez is probably a 30-plus home run guy. Buxton, Rizzo, all are solid power guys. So he's not amazing in power. I don't think he's one of the top couple teams like I thought McTaggart and I thought Griffin were. But I do think he's got average to above average power too. He's going to get some reinforcements, not quite the way Roman is with Tatis and Harper, who are probably the best 2 of anybody coming back. But Jorge Polanco and Mitch Haniger, when they get back, that's going to be helpful too. And I feel bad for Uncle Raymond here because Uncle Raymond actually, Charlie Brown, you were in my top like 3 or 4 when I started doing this a couple days ago. But dude, you got probably the worst injury luck so far in the starting rotation. I feel sincerely like really bad about it because this rotation coming out, Justin Verlander, Robbie Ray, Chris Sale, Logan Webb, and Nestor Cortez, that was probably the best 1 through 5. And I'm not saying it can't still be a really good rotation, but the reason Charlie's not in the top like 3 or 4 the way I had him before is just I have to be honest with the fact that Verlander probably is going to be back soon, but we don't know for sure. Nestor Cortez, I think, is awesome, but we've only seen a year and a half of it, and he's one of the only ones who's healthy. Robbie Ray, I don't think we're going to see him probably in all of April, and hopefully he's back. I hope I'm wrong about that, and he's back even sooner than that, but he's probably shut down for 2 or 3 weeks right now, minimum. Logan Webb was really encouraging, I think, opening day, so he's still there. But Chris Sale was discouraging. I mean, the strikeouts were great that first weekend, but I don't know, man. He had a lot of hard hit balls against him. He hasn't been consistent the last couple of years. I don't think he's bad. I don't think this rotation's terrible now, but I think it went from like arguably the top 1 or 2 or maybe 3 at worst in my mind, and now it's a middle of the pack one. So I think Charlie Brown's still in a good spot to be competitive. I think he's going to need some some good luck here to make up for the tough start he was dealt here with his pitchers, because I think if they come back and he's in a good spot with them, he can definitely contend for the top spot. But right now I see him as the 6th best team. What do you guys think? Do you think Charlie's in the top half?
I love the rivalry talk earlier from Roman, and I'll jump on the bandwagon here. I think this may be punitive, but I have Charlie Brown much lower, around 8, and I think that I will declare Charlie Brown as my rival. So, I have this feeling I want to pick up Shea Langeliers just to spite Charlie.
He's still out there.
Yeah, he's still lurking. So pick him up, guys. But I think you said it, Nick. I'm not going to continue. It's really the pitching for me. I did have him quite a bit higher, but with Robbie Ray, Verlander hurt. I mean, he did intentionally draft Polanco hurt as well, which I think is a fine buy at $8. But I think he just has a decent amount of talent that is hurt. I think the Chris Sale start was actually worrisome, not just truly a throwaway. And then you have a good point with Cortez. Like, I think he's for real, but there are questions now where he only had stars on the pitching side. So it's going to be tough for him to move forward. I have him in the middle of the pack.
Roman, are we seeing the great pumpkin this year? What about Charlie Brown?
So originally I didn't have him in my top six. My rankings went down to six. And then now that I look at his team a little bit more, he's kind of jumped up a lot here. Um, Anthony Rizzo, former Cub. Matt Mervis,
Oh, good
current Cub.
point.
Oh wow.
Javier Baez, former Cub. Cody Bellinger, current Cub.
He's probably an ally
Craig
to you the way he's a
Kimbrell.
rival to Kyle. He's probably an ally for
Yeah,
you.
he's got Craig Kimbrell on here. Um, one other thing here, Gleyber Torres. Here's a little trivia nugget. He
Not a Cub.
he was in. He's not a Cub, but he
Not
was
at the
in the Cubs
moment.
farm system.
Yeah, he's from the
So
Cubs.
who was he traded for? It was a
I know the
mid-season
answer. Do you know this, Kyle?
deadline deal
It's a guy who's on the
that
Royals now, if
that
that helps.
yeah that propelled us. Kind of a dirtbag, but
He's a scumbag,
he
but
was.
he was the reason the Cubs were boosted to the World Series that year. They traded, at the time,
Yeah,
Gleyber was the number one prospect.
It's not Greinke, is it?
No, it's a reliever.
no, yeah,
I have no idea.
Aroldis Chapman, who at the time was
yeah.
probably a top one or two closer in baseball, and Roman's dead right. I mean, he got them over the hump in a big way in the playoffs. He had a really strong final couple months, but he's a scumbag. It sucks. And it was wild because Gleyber was the number one prospect of baseball at the time. It was a great move for the Yankees, great move for the Cubs too. They won the World Series off of it, but
Yeah,
another
Yeah.
former Cub.
exactly. So I got Charlie Brown up there. The only thing that I didn't really like, Chris Sale, although I've come around on him, he was a White Sox, right? So we talk about rivalries. Cubs and White Sox is a pretty big thing. Then he got traded to Boston, and he helped me out on some of my other fantasy team during those early Boston years. Not a lot of technical analysis here, just a lot with the heart.
Well, I mean, fantasy leagues are one with the heart, though, so I think it is useful analysis, and I appreciate you sharing it, Roman. All right, we'll move on then, because an excellent segue. Charlie Brown's number one rival in this league is my seventh favorite team. My dead even, there's six. There's six. There's one in the middle. It's number 7. This guy is the teeter-totter we're all teeing on. We're all on one side of him. Kyle. I think you were number 7. And I think Kyle is one of the highest ranges of outcomes. I think Kyle probably might be the best future setup. I mean, if you look at like the top prospects, whether it be fantasy or real life baseball ranks, Kyle has like half of them legitimately. Like it's pretty fucking ridiculous how good Kyle's setup is for a year or two from now. And I think Kyle can contend this year too. I talked about it a little bit last week. Kyle's draft was infuriating because he stole a lot of guys that I either had last year or I like. We have very similar opinions. I don't want to go into too much detail with stuff I've already said before, but I think when I look at projections for Kyle's team, they aren't quite fair to him because they're projecting guys like Volpe or Moreno or Vargas or CJ Abrams or Colbin Carroll or Jordan Lawler or Gavin Stone, and the list goes on and on. All these amazing prospects or guys who are rookie eligible right now. All these amazing young guys are not being given the benefit of what if they are when Tatis first came up? What if they are when a lot of these past 3 or 4 years, when Acuna first came up, and a lot of these guys, not even just the last couple of years, or Soto first comes up, and they're just incredible. They won't all be. I don't think they all will be, but early returns on most of them have been incredible. Carroll and Volpe have looked good so far. I'm pretty sure going into today, your boy Vargas, who was my boy last year, leads all of baseball in walks. Like the dude's here for the big leagues. A lot of these guys are. Again, they won't all hit.
He doesn't even have to swing in order to get walks.
Yeah, they still think it's spring training. They think it's spring training still, where he's not swinging. So if just like half of those dudes end up being 80% outcomes, I think Kyle's in an amazing spot. If a quarter of them do, I think Kyle's still in an okay spot. And if like 3/4 of them do, Kyle might win the whole league, like this year and potentially for the future too. I think he's doing a great job of a similar strategy that Striali and McTaggart the last couple of years, I think, have done the best version of doing. McTaggart clearly rode it to a title last year. Zach's team, I think, has become really, really improved over the last 2 years. So I think Kyle's doing a great version of it. On top of those young guys, Altuve will be back soon. Altuve probably misses the first month and a half, 2 months, but when he comes back, that's an immediate seasoned veteran, weak position second base, lots of power, some speed there. That said, Kyle has probably not enough stolen base monsters, but I said it a couple seconds ago for Charlie or some of these other teams. There will be a lot of guys on waivers, in my opinion, this year in the first month who steal hella bases. It's just going to happen. Like so many guys who had middling speed before or middling stolen base totals will just try this year. Now the bases are different and the pitch clock's the way it is. And if Kyle picks up 1 or 2 of them, he's probably in the top half in steals too. If he doesn't, probably in the bottom half, but not by a ton either. I don't think he's the worst. I had him as 10th out of 13 in steals. So Kyle, get a stolen base guy, and you're probably going to be all right. And I already sort of said this, my last point was just projections for your power are lower. But again, I think it's because right now, if you look at Fantrax projections, over under 2 home runs for Volpe this year. I think I'll probably take the over.
Yeah.
I'll probably take the over pretty comfortably. Yeah. So my point is, like, when I look at most projections, which is how I like to do my rough setup and then I evaluate, and that's my formula for this, by the way, is I used projections. I exported everybody's teams and just ranked everybody. And I looked at your teams afterwards and adjusted the rankings. It had Kyle's one of the worst teams, but just not appreciating enough, in my opinion, the fact that there's so much upside with your players. So I think you're dead smack in the middle. It will not shock me because I know how active you are if you finish like second or third or first even. But you have a huge range of outcomes, in my opinion. What do you say, Kyle? And then we'll let Roman tell you how bad or how good you are.
Yeah, I think that has been a point of emphasis for me, focusing on a lot of the keeper value. And I think I did a little bit more of it this offseason than I planned to. I thought I had a few decent core pieces going into the draft. But yeah, I mean, I actually have myself ranked 10th. So I do have myself on the lower side.
And he's modest.
I think with all of the points aside, in terms of projections, in terms of some of the young guys, potential club dogs on my roster, I am really weak in power. I'm actually not as scared from a stolen base perspective. I think a lot of my guys are pretty fast intentionally. You said this earlier, Nick. I've made it a point of emphasis to try to draft guys who have the potential to steal, even if they are more power guys, or maybe they're checking off a different category for you. I do try to put a lot of value into that. We've seen over the years some stars, even like Machado is a good example. Some years you know that he won't steal, and then other years he steals like 15 bags. So
he went from 0 to 20 to 0.
Yeah, but I like to have the potential. I like to get guys who have the ability. So I did try to focus on that the best I could. But yeah, I think next year will be my main focus based on how my roster looks now.
Well, he said that, so now if you win, you get no credit, like, just so you know. Roman, what do you think, though? Is Kyle in a good spot?
Yeah, so I think this is the epic battle in dynasty leagues, right? Win now versus build up for later. Do you sell out and get a bunch of cheap stars and then kind of get have your championship opportunity later on? So I'm a little bit in the middle. I like to kind of have my cake and eat it too. So I like to win now and then also have some of that build for later pieces. Again, that kind of falls with the stars and scrubs, right? You take a bunch of shots at the end, one of them hit, and then there's your value for your draft later on, so you can afford the stars again. So I actually had you kind of in the 3-4 range. So I was pretty happy.
Kyle, say thank you.
Roman, thank you.
No problem. So you had a lot of star hitters in my book here. So you got Freddie Freeman, Arenado. I would put Corbin Carroll up there right now. And who's the fourth one here? I had a fourth one, but now that I look at it, maybe not a fourth star.
I like Martinez a lot this year. He was one of my big targets going into the year. I do expect him to have a jump back year here, but you never know. Those are the types of guys I'm happy to drop if they end up not working out. But yeah, I like to take those flyers, and the projections like him this year.
Yeah, I think those steady Eddie players definitely help out in a lot of these builds. And I think you have a good amount of players that kind of do a little bit of everything. So Nick mentioned stolen base, where you're going to get the stolen bases from. To me, I don't know if he's looking at the right team, because Volpe's going to steal a lot. CJ Abrams, if he gets on base, it's a stolen base, right? Corbin Carroll stealing 2 or 3 a game. Lars Nootbaar is going to get some stolen bases. Vargas can run as well. And a section that I kind of wanted to do, but I didn't get around to doing research, is big boppers who steal bases. Freddie Freeman, double-digit steals. You wouldn't think that, right? Jose Altuve, he's going to have some wheels, right? When they come back. So I think you're pretty well balanced here. The one thing I thought you had a bad take in the last episode was Lars Nootbaar, and how you thought you were going to kind of sneak by everybody else. Where if you listen to any podcast, all they say is industry darling.
Yeah.
Lars Nootbaar, not really a sleeper. Everybody's on
Lazy
him, right?
analysis from Kyle.
Yeah. Everybody looks at the underlying numbers there, right? He's got the huge exit velocity, low K rates, right? High walk rates, good hitter. They look at that outfield. They've already pretty much pushed Dylan Carlson out to the fourth outfielder, so the playing time is there. So I didn't know how you thought you were gonna, skate by there, get him for like $5.
But I still managed to get my claws on him. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Get your guys. That's my favorite thing about the auction is you get your guys. Lots of relievers here. Lots of relievers. So I'm interested to kind of hear your take on the pitching. So is it because you were kind of thinking more towards future years?
I got a guess. I bet. I was
Yeah.
gonna say Kyle's gonna wait until July when half the league is out of it a little bit. And he's gonna pick up the best streamers then when they're cheap and easy to get, and he'll get his starts then. That's what he's gonna do when they're stretched out.
Are they more available? I think streaming is kind of not as much of a viable option anymore. I think with the injuries and everything, matchups aren't like as good as they were before, like streaming wise. So
I think there's a combination of factors, and I'll let Kyle answer this too. But I think there's something to be said for, especially after the trade deadline in real baseball, some of the teams that are bad become even worse. Like the Nationals, for example, will probably trade away someone like Joey Meneses to become even more easy to pin up against. Or some of the bottom 5 or 6 matchups get more reasonably able to be taken advantage of. And then also in the fantasy league, I hope this isn't the case, but most years just the reality is fantasy football starts. If you're not in the top like half of the league, you kind of pay a little bit less attention. So it's a little bit easier to sneak through a streamer for $1 or $2. My guess is Kyle probably cuts half these relievers by July and just picks up to catch up and starts 3 guys a day who have good matchups. And it could work, it could not work. We'll see. But that's probably what you're going to do, I'm betting.
I'm throwing a bunch of darts at the wall. I basically care about none of the relievers at all. And
more people in the league.
Yeah, of course. Especially my nemesis, Charlie. No, I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, Nick explained it exactly. I'm very conscious of the 200 start limit, and I really want to focus on getting quality starts, not just actual quality starts, but good play out of my pitchers. I'll give you one quick example just from strikeouts perspective. There's no sample size here, so take this with a grain of salt. But before the game started today, my team had a total of 29 strikeouts. Missigman was towards the top of the heap, and he's actually one team that I'd like to talk about later. I have him pretty high. We've not touched on him quite yet, but he had 49 strikeouts. So by far, I think maybe second place in the category, smoking me.
That's better than you, yeah.
The problem is he has 8 games started while I only have 3. So I have 9.6 Ks per game started, and he has 6.12. So the point is, no sample size, but I'm focused on getting Ks not just from my starting pitchers, but I want relief guys playing every day. I want to get as much playing time in each roster spot as possible. And then Nick said it. If some of my guys who are on the bench right now don't get healthy, like Severino, Glass now, I am kind of banking on those guys. But if they don't get healthy, I am confident I can get some value from the waiver wires, just stream and drop. So yeah, that is my thought. I'd prefer not to really focus too much on amping up my pitchers. I actually kind of like them where they are right now. That's why I wanted to go out and get Urias. Yeah, I think I'm pretty comfortable with it. I think that's something that I've learned a little bit in the past couple of years. I think a lot of times relief pitchers are overvalued in our league because we're a saves and holds league. You can satisfy that box with a lot of these lesser players. So we'll see how it pans out.
We have a wide range of outcomes for you, Kyle. I think no matter what, the box will be satisfied. Great talk there. We'll move right along. Number 8. So who's the 8th team for me? We'll see where you guys have him. I think it's Zach Striali. So real quick, this is probably like the 3rd or 4th most at minimum. I think he's in the top 3rd of the league in power. Likely going to be top 3 or 4 in power. Adam Duvall, what a fucking ad. That was a great ad. And that wasn't even one of his power guys early on. That dude's going to hit 35 home runs. He's just going to do it. Yanier Diaz also going to play a lot for the Astros early on. Decent power in that bat. Got him for free. I love that we talked a little bit after the draft about takeaways. Me and Kyle did last week. Trout went for a lot of money, like more than Jose Ramirez. But Trout also is Mike Trout, and you can't take the money with you in the draft when it's over. So it's smart to pay up for someone like Mike Trout, who's going to hit 40 home runs if he's healthy, walk a ton, tons of hard hit balls that aren't home runs, probably a good batting average, lots of RBIs and runs. Zach's got some studs. Zach's got probably the most power, though, again, I think, if not third or fourth. And I also just love, I think, in addition to having a average to slightly above average offense, again, top 3 or 4 starters, Brandon Woodruff, potential NL Cy Young. I hope so. Max Fried. I know he's potentially not going to be there right now, but I think Max Fried's awesome. George Kirby, excellent with Seattle. Freddie Peralta, dealt today. Freddie Peralta is also awesome. Tony Gonsolin's hurt right now, but Tony Gonsolin should be a solid 5th guy when he gets back for him. Decent lottery ticket there. And I want to call out, I have no idea if Zach did this on purpose. I haven't talked to him about it, but he has Tony Gonsolin, and he also has Pepio and the Dodgers prospect. Also, he has 3 Dodgers starters, basically guaranteeing no matter who the 5th starters for LA, he's going to have them. And you always want the 5th LA Dodgers starter. That's a cheat code. That was Shinjin Ryu 3 years ago. I used to use him. That was Gonsolin a couple years ago. He's used him. That was a Tyler Anderson or Andrew Heaney last year. I used both of them. Zach is doing the exact thing I wish I was doing. So I think it's really smart because one of them is going to be incredible. The other 2 you can cut in a month. Great job with that, Zach. The last thing I have on him, too, Ellie De La Cruz, I think, is up in the next month. He's an awesome stash. I wish he was somehow available. I wish I could trade him for him. It's not realistic. It's a keeper league. It's a dynasty style league. That dude's going to rake for a long time. He's probably the top 3 or 4 prospects who are not already on MLB rosters. So Zach's going to get better as the year goes on. His rebuild's basically almost over. It will not shock me at all if he does what McTaggart did last year. We're going to last year. I thought Brendan would be 5th or 6th. He was good, but not great. And he just won the whole thing because some of his guys showed up and immediately started paying dividends. He also had Mike Trout last year in the auction. So Mike Trout is a good luck charm.
Yeah,
Kyle, what do you guys think?
Let's see if Trout can turn that good luck in real life as well.
He does it only in fantasy.
Yeah, no, true. So I like Zach's team quite a bit better. He's my 6th team overall. And I do just want to kind of emphasize this point again that I do have that clustered tier of 3 teams. The rest are just a clob all together.
One big Bren clob.
Yeah, exactly. So a couple of players you didn't call out. Will Smith is also off to a great start last time I checked.
Yep.
He's raking. O'Neal Cruz, I really like him.
Couldn't hit 40 home runs.
Yeah. So I think that your take with Zach having maybe the most power of any team is good. I did not see Adam Duvall coming this year at all. I would have missed
Me neither.
Every time on that. So kudos to you, Zach. And yeah, I overall I love Zach's team. You said it earlier, but Brendan and Zach did something similar over the past couple of years, building out their team. So I think he has a really well built team. There are a couple of players like Suzuki on the down low. He's coming back probably in a week or so. So who knows? We might see some, breakout from him. And Trout and Bichette too, as 2 of the columns on your offense, I think are
For
great.
sure.
So I did just want to again call out Baltimore, the pitcherless darling George Kirby. So I'll end there.
Roman, what do you think? You ready to party with Striali?
I am. I had him in the 3-4 range up there with Kyle's team. And I think that the big thing that stood out was the star pitchers. So Brandon Woodruff, he's another MLB at bat darling. So if you get to watch him, he's a machine. He's got that live fastball that he can put anywhere, and then he's got 3 secondary pitchers that are all solid that go exactly where he wants. And you can see anytime he misses a pitch, it's what's wrong? It's not some of the other guys oh, whoops, that one got away from me. He's a man of his craft. And I'm not a Brewers fan being from Chicago, but I love me some Brandon Woodruff. He's got Felix Bautista. Shout out to Felix with the Omar whistle coming out. I think that's better than the Edwin Diaz trumpets, even though I love the trumpets intro music. George Kirby, I'm really big on him. I think the command that he has, and the bevy of pitches, he's going to be in this league a long time. Ricky Tiedemann is, he's got some really good players in his minor league spot. I was surprised to hear you say that Ellie De La Cruz is going to be up in about a month or so. I thought he was further away than that. But
I'm a little bit higher maybe than most. I think he'll be up soon. We'll see.
Okay. I think Edward Cabrera is another guy that I really like watching, that 93-mile-an-hour changeup that he has. So I really like that. O'Neal Cruz is StatCast darling. 6'7's got generates unreal power, just like exit velo,
He's a freak.
117, 121. He had like the hardest hit baseball like measured, and it was a single off the wall because it was hit so hard. In the Bo
Hardest
Bichette.
infield throw too.
Yeah, I saw that. That was all like
He's a
the
freak.
first like game that he was up. Yeah.
And going back to your sluggers with speed, I think you can check that box off with Cruz too. He can run a little bit too.
Oh yeah. He's got wheels. He's got those long strides.
Definition of a dude who can do it if he wants to. He just doesn't want to try. He's like Machado that way, I think, actually, where he's a guy with these new rules. He could steal 40, and I would not be shocked.
Yeah, I think the Machado, the 20. I haven't looked this up, but if I had to guess, the 20 stolen bases were in his contract year where he was trying to get 300 million, and then
It
once
was
he got
definitely
paid,
either the year before. Yeah, it was one of those years right
then he
before.
got
You're
paid.
right.
He didn't want to risk it. I think my favorite player here is Bo Bichette. My firstborn. His name is Bo. His nickname is Bo. So that's another heart pick there. I do really like the Mike Trout. I know that he overpaid in some aspects for that. But you don't leave, like you said, you don't leave with that money from the draft. And I think Trout's going to have even though he hit 40 homers last year, right? He had spent some time on the injury list the past couple of years. I think he's going to kind of keep it together. I think he's upset about that final strikeout in the WBC. I think he's going to try to one up Shohei this year. Probably going to try to hit 50 homers. And we'll see if he runs a little bit this year. I know his back has been giving him trouble. He didn't want to get injured, but we'll see if he does that. So I'm pretty big on this team.
I think we're all most on the same page. Sorry, Zach, having you eighth. I was the low man on you. They both had you in the top. Kyle said, I think, 6. Roman had you top 3 or 4. So I thought I liked you, Zach. I hate you, apparently. Hope you have a good year, though. My number 9 team. We're moving on. Welcome to the league, Mark Missigman. I think you're number 9. I think, and again, Kyle made a good point. I want to make sure I reiterate all of this. Mark's going to listen to this and be like, I'm number 9. This sucks. There's only 13 teams. No, I think legitimately, almost anybody could win it this year. And Mysticman is in the same tier as the last 5 teams we've talked about for me. But real quick, I don't think it's a super deep starting rotation. But Garrett Cole and Zach Wheeler is one of the top 3 or 4 1-2s. He stole Garrett Cole. I don't know how he got him. That was a thief move. He got him though. Good job there, Mysticman. And Green as a third starter is really awesome too. Stroman and Marquez I don't love as much, but they dominated early on, so they could definitely be useful. Patrick Sandoval, I like him fine. Alex Cobb, Pavetta, etc. There's depth there. So if a couple of those guys break out, you have a good 1 through 4. This could be an above average starting pitching staff, one of the better ones potentially. I think his offense is solid. I don't know if his power is quite up there in the way you maybe want it to be. I think he's probably a little bit below average there right now. The only guys I think I've seen probably hit more than 25 plus home runs for sure: Mookie Betts, Matt Chapman. I don't know if there's anybody else there who's definitely hitting 25 to 30. Now, 1 or 2 of them definitely will. It's going to happen. But I'm just saying, I don't know if there's bankable power the way there are some of the other teams. But again, plenty of guys with low 20s, like Randy, Bobby Witt, Nate Lowe. It wouldn't shock me if any of them hit 30. I'm just saying, I think you're not going to be able to bank the way some of the other guys can about hitting 30 plus. Speed, Bobby Witt is one of the, again, same deal as O'Neal Cruz. I think he could steal 30, could steal 2. Wouldn't shock me either way. Probably going to steal a lot, though, I think. Betts, similarly. We've seen him steal a lot. We've seen him steal a few bases. He'll probably steal a lot, I think, this year. And same deal with Randy. I think Randy probably steals a lot. So I think he's average in speed. He could be average in power. I think his starters are incredible. His bullpen's okay. This feels like a team that probably ends up being in the middle of the pack, but if some things break his way, I could see him contending. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so Mark, where Nick hates you, I love you. I have you 4th overall. I think you had the best draft of the league. I think you executed on the stars and studs technique that we've talked a lot about today. I agree. So a couple of blemishes in my mind. Stolen bases is a little bit less of an issue. I think you could use a little bit more power. I think you should take advantage of your minor league spots for the future. There are some guys still out there I believe will come out this year who are just still on the waivers. So
who are they? Just out of curiosity.
Take advantage of that. And then as long as you're conscious about the 200 starts limit, you have a lot of pitchers in your bullpen right now. So you don't have to take my radical.
He's going to do the anti-Kyle. He's going to do the opposite. He's going to start all his games by July and then just get all the relievers. He'll pick up all the ones you drop.
Hey, that might work in your favor, but yeah, I'm surprised that you have him so low, just given some of the talent he has on offense. I really like your team a lot, and I know we're getting to the end of it here, so I don't want to take too long, but just with Mookie and Randy Rosarena and like I think Bobby Witt is going to be great this year.
For
So I
sure.
don't know. I think that especially picking up Garrett Cole from Munich, like I think he has a lot of high end talent that maybe we're not accounting for here. And I think one thing that we've tried to articulate today is that in this league as a roto with a lot of injury spots, there's this special relationship with replacement value where I think whenever you get a quality guy who get out there, put up good numbers for you, there's a huge premium on that. And I think he has a lot of those guys. Garrett Cole is definitely one of them. Not that we expect to see him get hurt anytime soon, but I just wanted to make that point again. And
Yeah.
I
He
do
might be
like
the
him.
least likely starter to get hurt, actually. He's a horse.
Yep.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
You said you had him in the top 4, though, just to reiterate?
Yeah.
All right,
He's
Mark, I hate you. Sorry. Raymond, what do you think? Do you think Team Mysticman's going to be in a good spot?
I had him in the bottom half of the league.
Yeah, that's my guy. We
Nothing,
hate him.
not a
He took
lot
Garrett
of
Cole.
kind of like jumped out. The pitching's pretty good. I would look to trade Marquez ASAP. He is a Colorado Rockies pitcher, so if he has another good starter too, I would look to move him. The rest of the pitching staff's pretty good actually. I think Alex Cobb, if he's not unlucky, I think he's going to be pretty good. Stroman, I like as well. Like I said, I think the Cubs are doing pretty good with their pitching development, kind of working with their stars or their players. Um, I think the value from the Mookie Betts pick is going to come when he's going to be gain second base eligibility.
He
Right,
played
there's
there
a lot of
last night.
talk
It's
about
coming.
that, but yeah, when is it 5 games in our league? Is it
I believe it's 10 in season here.
okay?
The Constitution, if you go to settings on our page, will tell you it's whatever
Yeah,
ESPN's default is. I just imported ESPN's.
okay. I
I
thought
believe
they
it's
were
10.
5, but either way,
It could be right though. By the way, I don't know for sure. I'll check it while you're
you
talking. Go
know,
ahead.
is it when is that going to happen? Is it going to happen 2 months in? Is it going to happen like June, July? I think if you're out of it by then, I think that's going to be a really good trade piece to a lot of teams that are going to be kind of looking at not so many good players at second base. Um, but I like the Josh Naylor pick. He's an Sarris guy as well. Jonathan India, I'd like to see him kind of like come back. He was really quality hitter a year. Not this past year, but the year before that when he won Rookie of the Year. So
That's a great take, by the way, about Betts. If he ends up being out of it, a second base eligible guy who can do Mookie Betts' stat line, that is super valuable to a guy who's in the top 3 or 4 contending. Great point.
I don't think he steals as many bases. I think he's gotten slower, and I think he's worried about injuries. So
I saw his
I
interview
think
with
Freddie
Eno saying he didn't
Freeman,
know if he would. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a decent
so I
take.
think
We'll
Freddie
see.
Freeman's gonna get some more stolen bases than him.
I like to hear that. Cool. So I know we're running a little bit low on time, Nick. Do you want to go through one more before jumping to another
Yep,
call?
let's speed through. We have 4 minutes to talk about the next guy who I have as number 10, then we'll jump to the next call and we'll finish out the last couple guys.
All right.
So, number 10, you love him. He calls in Dom French. So, Dom, I think, is very similar structurally to you, Kyle, actually. He's kind of doing the Kyle thing a little bit. I think he has league average power. Mountcastle, Teoscar, Gallo, who has been on a hot streak last couple of days, Ozzy Albies, Luis Robert. There's plenty of strong power there. I could see him finishing like 5th or 4th in home runs, and it wouldn't shock me at all. I think he's probably in the top half of the league in power. I love Wander Franco this year. He's had it off to a pretty good start. I think Wander's gonna be one of those guys who just like year 2 or year 3 just blows up in a big way. He's a former top prospect. I don't know if you guys remember a couple years ago when Vlad, a year before Wander came up, rookie year was eh. But when these guys are number 1 prospects and they just get a hold of the league, they adjust a little bit, go through the league once, they just take off. I think Wander's going to probably do some version of it. He won't have probably 48 home runs, whatever Vlad had year 2, but Wander's going to have an amazing year, I think. I love Yoshi. Great pick there. I think with steals, you're in a pretty good spot too. Ozzy Albies, Franco, Kim, Teoscar. Lots of double-digit plus steals guy. Edmonds going to have a ton of steals. You wish he wasn't hitting ninth, but that lineup's so good. The Cardinals lineup is so deep. You're probably going to get a lot of at-bats anyway. I think Edmonds going to be a great stolen base guy. So I think you're average to above average there too. Great to be in both power and steals, top half of the league. And then for your rotation, I think Gossman and Cease is a really good 1-2 punch. Probably the best one left, or one of the best ones left of the teams we haven't covered yet. So that's excellent. I just worry about the team or the guys in your rotation behind him, Dom. I don't know if it's necessarily a great 3-4. There are guys with upside. I'm not saying there definitely aren't, but I just think those two are easily your 1-2. And after that, we got to see who fills the spots for you. Now, if you find this year's Spencer Strider, this year's Nestor Cortez, okay, it's a really good pitching staff. We'll see what happens there. And I think your relievers are solid. So I think you are probably the 10th best team. Same tier as the last 6 teams I've gone over. I want to make sure it's really clear here. I have you 10. We'll see where they have you. But Kyle, what do you think? Where's Dom?
Yeah, Dom is my number 11 team. I think
he hates you. Sorry, Kyle.
Very similar points. And you forgot to mention, since Gallo got out of pinstripes, he's just breaking out now. So Gallo's a thing, I guess.
Yeah,
he's got
3 home runs.
But yeah, I said this in a previous episode. I'll keep this short. But Dom, I actually think you have one of the best keeper rosters in the entire league. I think you just have a couple of guys who are expensive too, and that might serve you well this year. If some of these guys play to their potential, you're absolutely a contender, in my opinion. I actually like Teoscar Hernandez a little bit more than Nick does, and a few others. So I think that you've got a good team. I'm sorry.
I took Teoscar in the stolen base homers thing. Do you like Teoscar a lot? I didn't realize you liked him.
I
like him a lot. Yeah,
I like him a lot. Let's start debating Teoscar. No.
Okay. Whatever. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I like him a lot. I remember one take we had. It may have been pre-show a while ago, but just you don't like him in Seattle.
I worry his power might fall off a little bit, but I think he'll run a lot.
Yeah, so
it's still be good in power.
Yeah, so we're saying the same thing, but I'll drop it here. But Dom, I do like your team a lot, and I actually think if you want to skew our power rankings a little bit more from a keeper perspective, I think your team gets a huge bump as long as you keep the right guys. No Mike Soroka or anything like that. But yeah, I'll flip it over to Roman.
Roman closes out here. What do you think about Dom's team?
Yeah, I think overall, from a Baltimore perspective, it's pretty good, right? He's got Adley, Mountcastle, Trey Mancini, former Baltimore legend. So
Dom
I like
French
that.
Orioles fan.
I'm on a Teoscar bandwagon as well. I know last year he kind of struggled in the beginning. He had an oblique injury in the beginning of the year. I know because he was one of my higher draft picks in another league. But once he got past that, then the power really came back. Yoshida, I really like as well, coming off that WBC glory. The pitchers, I'm not too fond of. I do like me some Pete Fairbanks. Dylan Cease was another Cubs trade deadline deal. Do you guys remember what deal he was a part of?
I actually don't remember that one. Do you remember, Kyle? Who did Cease go for?
I don't know.
So he was packaged along with Eloy Jimenez.
Oh, you're right. He was in the Eloy move.
For Jose Quintana.
Dude, that was wild.
He had like 2 or 3 years of control.
And we're back to you, Roman. Finish out your point, baby.
My point was a trivia piece on Dylan Cease and Eloy Jimenez coming from the Cubs system. But anyway, so Dom's team, I like the home value there, but bottom half in my book.
All right. So we're all generally on the same page here. Team number 11. We've talked about him, talked about his daddy. Welcome to the 11 spot, Sparky Markey. So for Mark, good power. Love low. Love Seth Brown, generally at their values. Trey Turner, I called out previously as a value I loved. I think he's an excellent guy for this format. George Springer, one of my dudes. Giancarlo Stanton, excellent power. Kyle Schwarber, excellent power. Those guys are all good for 27 plus home runs, I think. And you have guys like Hayes, Gunnar Henderson, Oscar Gonzalez, Murphy. These are all solid chances for 20 plus also. Doesn't even include Brendan Donovan, who is probably going to get there based on his hot start if he keeps hitting the top of that lineup in St. Louis. So Mark's another guy, talked about a couple seconds ago, was actually, I think is one of the top like 3 or 4 teams in power also, if everything breaks right for him. So with that also, I worry about your speed a little bit, Mark. Garrett Mitchell's going to have to play every day to give you the 15, 20 steals you probably want from him. And after that, there's no one else really besides Treya I think is going to give you many steals at all. A lot of like 5 to 8 guys. Now, again, new stolen base rules. Some of those guys might spike 20 plus. Wouldn't shock me at all. Pick up guys on waivers. You're going to be all right. But as you currently are constructed, I worry, especially if Trey Turner gets hurt, which I don't think he's likely to get hurt more than the average player, but he has been hurt some in the past. So it's not unlikely he gets hurt either. And if you lose him, I think you're in a really tough spot with Steele. So I would try to add a stolen base guy or two. That said, rotation wise, so it's going to sound like an insult. Mark is full of SP3s. I actually do like Mark's pitching staff more than some of these other teams we're going to talk about from here on out. But guys like Christian Javier, I think he's probably like a SP2, actually, in all seriousness. But Charlie Morton, Blake Snell, Luzardo, Carrasco, these are all legitimately very useful pitchers. None of them are true aces. Javier is probably your ace. I don't know if any of them are top like 15 guys. But again, I think you have lots of useful above average pitchers. So again, you see one or two of them to spike SP1 seasons out of nowhere and you're fine. Stream your guys well, you'll be all right. But I don't see necessarily the SP1 in there just at the moment. Lance McCullers will come back. He might be helpful for you. That said, you have a lot of good relievers. I think you have a lot of guys do, because relievers are, Kyle pointed this out earlier in the podcast here. By being a saves and holds league, there's a lot of useful relievers, but I think Mark has very good relievers. So I think Mark is not going to shock me at all if he finishes in the top like 3 or 4. Wouldn't shock me at all if he finishes in the top 5 or 6, especially. But I have him 11 going into today.
Yeah, Mark, I like you more. I have you at 7.
Oh, you love Sparky. You're always all about, Sparky this.
You're middle of the pack here. I think that, Trey Turner, who knows how many stolen bases he'll get. I think the speed is still obviously there. I do think Nick's point about stolen bases is correct, but I think when you do have a couple of key guys, Gunnar Henderson could be another, who knows. I don't know. I think you can pick up stolen bases. I don't view it as a huge issue. Although, Nick, you did bring up a good point. This year's a different year. So this could be more difficult maybe if you don't have those darlings, those Bren.
Well, just to interject though, I think the issue with Steele is generally I agree with Kyle's point, which is that because they're not correlated with OPS or batting average or home runs or RBIs, I usually push them down too. But just like when the juice ball era started a couple of years ago and you suddenly everybody's hitting 20 home runs, you need more home runs to compete. It's just because there's going to be a bunch of guys who steal 20 bases on waivers does not mean that means everybody's going to get guys who steal 20 bases on waivers. So you need more to compete in the category, I think. I actually kind of priced up stolen bases personally a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're saying the same thing. Nick, you mentioned all of these guys, so it's just repeating, but I don't know if we're giving Mark enough love for Schwarber, Springer, and Stanton. I think his power is pretty good.
I think it's top 3 or 4. You're right.
So, you mentioned all of the guys. Brendan Donovan is off to a blazing start.
I love that guy. Yeah.
Great. He is, someone who is now leading off in the absence of Lars Nootbaar. So if that continues, I think Donovan will continue to go up in value. And I'll pivot a little bit. I agree that Mark could use a true ace, but I think with Javier, Snell, and then the relievers are good. But I also like Charlie Morton a lot this year. Luzardo could break out as well. So I'm not sure if I'm quite as down on the pitchers, although I will say a priority for me if I were Sparky would be to continue to watch waivers. And if you can find a Spencer Strider or something of the like, that would change anyone's year. But I think that would specifically help Mark, maybe more so than others.
And just to reiterate, you said you had him where?
7.
Okay, so he had you 7. I have you 11, Mark. Raymond, what say you? Where's Mark? Where's Team Sparky?
Yeah, I'm a little higher. I like a lot of Kyle's points here. One person I don't like is Matthew Liberatore. I would drop him. I don't think he's he's a top prospect, but I don't think he had the results. I'm a huge Christian Javier fan. I had him in my other league, and I kind of caught him early. So I usually kind of emotionally attached to some of those players, and watching them on MLB at bat. You can see that he's got a 93, 94, 95 mile an hour heater, which isn't overpowering, but just countless swings right through that. And he throws the high heat and then the low breaking balls to get his strikeouts.
Houston's the best spot for him too.
Yeah. Charlie Morton, I like his Ks there. I think he's going to be pretty solid. And big boppers who run Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot. He got double-digit steals as well. So I think his team needs to stay away from the hospital. George Springer, IR legend. Giancarlo Stanton, IR legend.
Yeah.
Brandon Lowe coming off an injury. Charlie Morton, he's 40 years old. Blake Snell, injury prone. So that's the only thing I would watch out here.
You made a great point when you bring up Hoskins. I mean, Hoskins is again Alejandro Kirk, right? He's adjacent to those players. He's not quite them, but he's in that stratosphere. So there's a chance that you get some good karma there, Mark. All right, boys. Anything else on a Sparky's team? So, Mark, I hate you. They think you're a little bit better than I do. I think honestly, it's going to come down to we all agree you have top 3 to 4 power. If these are solo home runs and your RBIs are low, you're probably going to finish 11th where I have you. If they're a bunch of 2 and 3 and 4 run home runs, boom, all of a sudden you're 5th or 6th where they have you. So we'll see. Good luck, Mark. I think you're the same tier as everybody else. Moving right along, number 12. He's got dogs. He's built different. Brad. So, Brad, I think you have solid power, guys. You're not quite as powerful as Mark, but I think you're going to be in the middle of the pack in homers. I love Matt Olson, love Julio, love Santani Man. He's Santani Man can. They're all going to be 30-plus bombs. You're going to get guys like Correa and Jock Peterson to give you bombs, too. Going to be average packing bombs, I think. In speed, I think you're going to be all right there, too. Andres Jimenez, Brian Hayes, Tovar, Julio. These are all guys who probably profile as 20, 30 steals, barring whatever happens with the new rules, who runs, who doesn't. And I think you have upside there, too. Like a guy like Kalenic, I could totally see Kalenic steal 20, 30 bases. Not shocking whatsoever to me if that happens. And again, you're kind of like Kyle or Dom Light here with Casas, Kalenic, Tovar, Oscar Colas. You have a lot of young guys who I think could beat their projections and put you higher than this. But a lot of them proven guys, too, generally. And with your rotation, Luis Castillo is a true ace. That dude's awesome. He's going to shovel a year. I sincerely do believe that. I worry after that, though, about 2, 3, 4. I mean, if you told me one of Detmers, Bradish, who got hurt tonight, unfortunately, Lodolo and Giolito, if one of them just becomes like SP20 this year, I am not shocked whatsoever. I don't know which one's going to be. I think there's a decent chance one of them does that. One of them doesn't play at all. Maybe it's Bradish, unfortunately. And then the other 2 are just like SP40. So we'll see. You need some spikes there in a good way there, and your rotation is going to be in a fine spot. But right now, I do worry a little bit about you being in the back half of the rotations. That said, similar to Mark, I think your relievers in a league with a lot of good relievers, you have great ones. Duvall, Sewald, Diaz, you only have 3, but I think they're good ones with the ability for you to add ones later on if you need to. The one point I want to make for you, Brad, is maximize your IL slots. There are guys out there right now. You're not using your IL slots effectively. If you just pick up some guys on IL who are coming back, like if you get Jared Walsh, who I had to let go, it's probably a good move for you. Help you out with that power. Kyle, what do you think? Where's Brad?
I also have Brad at 12, despite the Brad dogs.
Those Brad dogs are working.
Yeah, I do want to reiterate. I mean, Brad has some of the best keeper value of the whole team. So my power rankings, personally, I really leaned heavily in terms of who has the best chance to win this year. But I don't think it's an exaggeration to say Brad might have the number 1 keeper value potentially in the league in Julio Rodriguez at 18.
Nick Castellanos.
I mean, he's in the running. He's one of the best. And then, I like Detmers. I like Kalenic. I like Lodolo at the price. So I'll leave it there. But Roman, any final thoughts on Brad?
Yeah, so I see the keeper value here. I agree. Julio Rodriguez. I think Tristan Casas is another great one. Reed Detmers. He's got 7 Ks already today. I just checked. Luis Castillo, he overpaid, but you know that's what happens when you're at the end of a tier in the draft.
Exactly.
So I like the squad, but I'd say middle of the pack. I got to run off for a second, but I should be able to come back. So just I'll be back with you guys in a moment. All right.
Perfect. We'll leave you right there, Roman. All right, Kyle. And without further ado, then we'll finish it out. My final team, and I can't stress enough, I have a 1 through 3 tier where I think it's a little bit more likely than the other remaining 10 teams they win, and then I have the other 10 all in a similar tier within like 5 or so percentage points of each other. Eric, welcome to our league. You got dealt probably the most barren roster, so this is not a reflection whatsoever on you that I have you at the bottom, so make sure I say that clearly. And that said, I think you've done a good job of improving your team over the last month, so you're in a good spot moving forward. Let's hit on some of your guys here. So I think I love Brett Beatty. That dude, by the way, they sat Eduardo Escobar today, so Brett Beatty's going to be up probably the next week. Over under is my guess. The guy sincerely do believe that. And he already has multiple home runs in his first game and a stolen base in the minor leagues. He's coming up. He'll be a difference maker. For power this year specifically, Machado, O'Neill, Goldie, these are all high 20s, low 30s home run guys for sure. So you got some power. Don't know about top half of league power, but you have the ability to spike there. If Bogarts, Castellanos, Contreras, Vaughn all hit the top half of their outcomes. Speed, I worry a little bit. Siri and Ruiz are probably the only guys I think definitely steal 15 plus. But as I've said countless times already, I could see a bunch of guys on waivers. If you just get 2 or 3 of them who end up being the stolen base guys in April, they're definitely going to compete in steals too. Bueller, excellent fantasy keeper. $10 right now, $15 next year. He won't pitch, of course, but dude, he's going to be incredible. He's been an ace when he's pitched in the last 3 or 4 years. So you're built for the future there. Pablo Lopez might be one of the most, outside of Jeffrey Springs, that's one of the most difference, like, change my opinion of them in the first week or so of starting pitchers. He shoved new pitches, tons of movement. CSW rate was through the roof. Pablo Lopez could be a real SP, like, top 12 to 15 guy moving forward in a way I didn't necessarily believe before. Otherwise, the rotation's got a lot of upside, but nothing necessarily guaranteed. Chris Bassett, Singer, Molly, all useful, very competent. Kind of like Mark's rotation, lots of SP3s there, I think. We'll see if one of them breaks out in his top, like, 18 or so. If so, you have a real chance. I like your relievers fine, not special, not bad. And I think, though, similar to what I said for you, Kyle, earlier, Eric's getting dinged a little bit here in projections, necessarily because of guys like Siri and Larnack, who we just picked up. Great ad there, I think, Eric. You're getting dinged a little bit because you're not getting the plate appearances they should get. So while I do have you last as well, like the projections, I think you're in the same tier. And if you finish like 5th, I will not be shocked whatsoever. I think you're definitely a contender still to finish in the money very easily. Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, so you've gone through the whole team, so I won't go too far, but I also have Eric at 13, and it's hilarious because in what other 13-team league could the 13th ranked player have all of those studs? Like,
yeah,
seriously.
And that's not just lip service either, by the way. Like,
yeah,
we're on hour 3 of this. I actually would not be shocked at all if Eric finishes like 4th and just like,
or if we said this pre-show, like if all of these guys turn out great value, if O'Neill goes out and hits,
if Brett Beatty's up tomorrow, you're right. He could finish he could definitely win the league. I do agree with that. I believe you.
Yeah. So also with that said, Eric did inherit probably some poor keeper value. He had no pitchers. He went out and stole Javi Lopez from me, and so
for Arenado, who you've never heard of.
Yeah. No, but in all seriousness, Eric, you're doing a great job getting good keeper value. I do like Walker Buehler a lot. $15 for next year. Soroka is $1. He's on your team, not Dom's team. So that was a great pick, Eric.
Dom, got to trade for your boy.
Yeah. That's it. I'll leave it there. But yeah,
Roman, welcome back. What do you think about Dom? Thanks. Or not Dom. We're talking about Dom. What do you think about Eric's team?
That's this one's for Jerry. Is that the right team?
This one is for Jerry. You got it.
All right. So Wilson Contreras, former Cub. I liked him.
Elite.
Let's see. I have one other guy here. Manny Machado, former O. Nick Castellanos, former Cub. That's all I got to say.
That's true. That's true.
Not at all.
All right. So that is the summarization of our 1 through 13. Let me know what you guys think as far as what me, Kyle, what me, Kyle, and Roman have said about you guys. Maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong. We all had some different takes on most of the guys in the middle, so obviously we're going to somehow have it turn up in the standings where we're all wrong. We're going to finish out this podcast with some fun. Who is the player, guys? I have these. So today is Monday. The Monday games aren't factored in here, admittedly, but I did some of these earlier today before the first pitches. So we're going to play Kyle versus Roman. Winner gets to stay on with me next week. Loser has to never return unless they do the next podcast shirtless. So let me pull up my document and we'll go through it. And this is, again, just to reiterate for you guys, this is just for the first weekend or so, first 3 or 4 games for each team.
Okay.
Spinning. I'll edit this out. Sorry, guys. It's taking a second to get into Google Docs. All right, let's boogie. I got him. Let's see. Who do we want to do first? All right. So this player is currently going into today, leading the majors. And by the way, let's do it where just say I know it or just raise your hand or something. I don't know if you know it. I'll go down. I have 4 or 5 clues for all. If you don't get it, I'll just tell you guys and we'll move on. It won't take too long. This guy going today led all of baseball in runs scored. This guy coming into the day had 2 home runs and also 3 doubles and a triple. So leading baseball in extra base hits. Coming into today, he was 73% rostered. Kyle?
CJ Cron.
Good guess, but no. So coming today, 73% rostered, 54% started. His stat line coming to today: 6 runs scored, 8 RBIs, 2 home runs, a .571 batting average, so he's 8 for 14, and he leads all of fantasy baseball and real baseball in OPS, OPS 1.957. He has no steals.
I don't know.
He is Adam Duvall. Pretty wild. He's also the number 1 player in the player rater before the day started, which is crazy. I'm sure it's not going to be the same tomorrow. It's been 4 days. But we talked about him earlier. That's wild to me.
That is wild. Yeah.
All right. Nice pull.
Good job, Zach.
Next one coming out here then. This guy was drafted as a top 40 hitter. And his stat line coming out of the first weekend: 4 runs, 7 RBIs, a .385 batting average. And he, going into today, this is no longer the case. I can confirm it based on the games we've already seen happen as we're doing the recording. But going into the day, he was the only guy in baseball with more than 1 home run and more than 1 stolen base. And the final hint is he played in the same series as Duvall.
I don't know.
Acuna?
Cedric Mullins.
Mullins, yeah.
2 home runs, 3 steals going into the day.
I knew that. Was Mullins leading stolen bases initially?
He was
I think for
one.
a second.
He was one behind. Yeah, in the first. Yeah, he's got 3 going into the day. He actually stolen today. He has 4 now, but he was
wow.
He was 1 behind. What's his name? Orioles shortstop Mateo.
Oh, okay.
He's tied with your good buddy Corbin Carroll.
Yep.
All right, let me do another one here. So, yeah, that's a little bit too easy. Let's do this one. Stat line going today: 3 runs, 7 RBIs, 3 home runs, .467 batting average, 1729 OPS, and he's tied for first in baseball in home runs going into the day.
Is Joe Gallo?
Close. No. Stat line's actually similar. I have him up here too. So he's in the same division as Trace Thompson, who also has 3 home runs going into the day. 99% rostered, and he hasn't played a game yet in Coors Field. Last clue is Kyle already said his name a couple minutes ago.
CJ Cron.
There you go, yeah. I had him as one of them. Good guess, Kyle. You had it right earlier. Close. All right, we'll do one more. We'll do a negative one. And this will be our last one. So going into the day, 16 at-bats without a hit, which is the most in Major League Baseball. No RBIs and 1 run scored. An OPS of 111, so .111. 7 strikeouts and 2 walks.
I think Max Muncy doesn't have a hit.
Trust me, he's on my team. I know. He actually has 1 though. He's close. He's the.
Alex Bregman doesn't have a hit.
You're right. I was gonna say he's a third baseman owned in every league. Yeah. And I'm sorry, Rib. I know he's on your team. One. Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll turn it around.
He'll go 5 for 5
I was
tomorrow.
talking a lot of trash, and Kyle kind of you got a couple there.
Now Kyle got 1. You got Crone. You're 1-1 right now.
Well, that's because you said he said his name earlier.
Kyle forgot who he said. All right. So it's 1-1 right now. Here's our tiebreaker one. Going into the day, current number 2 pitcher in fantasy baseball rankings for our scoring format. So on Fantrax, number 2 starting or number 2 pitcher. Oh, I wish. Dude, I wish. I love Jeffrey Springs. He's up there. This guy's 33 years old. And the number 2 starter going in the day. He had a win, a quality start, and 7 strikeouts over 7 innings of 1-run ball with a whip under .6 in his first start.
Well,
Lance Lynn.
You said Lance Lynn. Would you say, Kyle?
Garrett Cole did great, but that's
more
big out than that.
You're both. I mean, those are good guesses, but it's not Lynn. It's not Cole. Yeah. He was undrafted in our league, and going into the day, he wasn't even 50% owned on all of Fantrax. So not even just our league, the entire website. He was only owned in about half the leagues, like 48%.
Tyler McGill.
There was somebody pitched yesterday, right?
Is it Tyler McGill?
Tyler McGill is not who it is. It is somebody pitched on Sunday. I've got one more clue if you don't have any other guesses.
Yeah, let's hear the clue.
He's on the Padres and he was picked up today in our league.
I didn't get it. Sorry.
He pitches for the San Diego Padres and he was picked up today in our format.
Isn't he actually a relief pitcher, but he did start?
Seth Lugo.
Yeah, you got it. Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
No, that was close. Kyle gave you a hint and you got it. Yeah, you're right. Because Seth Luke has been a starter, then he was a reliever. Now he's back, and he's pitching 96 again, his reliever velocity as a starter. So you guys share that one. We have co-champions. You both can show up again anytime you want.
Roman won. The Italian stallion, Roman. The Russian Italian stallion, the podfather himself.
The Russian Vinny P.
I'll take that.
But no, we had some other stuff we're going to go through. It's been almost a 2-hour pod. Closing thoughts, though, Kyle, Roman. Roman, thank you for staying all night with us. I appreciate you a lot, man. Why don't you give us some closing thoughts? I'll give it to Kyle. We'll get out of here.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I think this league is going to be pretty awesome. A lot of parity here. I love all the activity in the beginning of the year, all the trades and the post draft pickups. That's one of my favorite things. Is after you draft and you drop a couple players, pick them up, see what you missed. So I'm very excited for this. Text me with some trade offers. I have a lot of FOMO in the missing out on these trades. So 847-858-9568. Hit me up.
I will reiterate too. That is the same contact for the mailbag when you want to send us in mailbag things. Roman, thank you so much for joining us, man. I appreciate you. Kyle, what do you got?
So make sure to hit up Roman for the mailbag, and Roman just loop in Dom to get into contact with us. But I have a high and a low, Nick, just for opening day, opening weekend. And the high is Adam Wainwright. Of course, he is hurt, but he got out there and sung the national anthem, which was just beautiful.
Dude's got pipes.
And so, Roman, we'll leave you off the hook today. But one idea I had is, the guests can come on and open up the show with the national anthem. I thought just to honor Adam Wainwright.
I like that. Moving forward.
Great opening. And as always, future guests will need to be on camera. We'll turn our cameras off.
Yeah, you'll never see me and Kyle.
Yep, never again. And then, so that was the high, Adam Wainwright. And then the low, of course, Nick mentioned before, Anthony Rendon got really grumpy. He was just in a bad mood. He was sad. They played their hearts out, but just couldn't win against, what was it, the measly A's?
The worst team in baseball. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's sad for Ohtani. And I don't know if you watched that clip again. Ohtani actually had the funniest look.
He was the one who helped get him away.
Yeah. He looked back and he's like, what is going on? So make sure to pull a freeze frame there. It's good stuff.
All right. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you both. Again, thank you so much for staying on. This is our longest pod by far. We're out of here. Have a great night, guys. Talk to you next week. Roman, have a good night, buddy.
Good night.
Guys.
See you guys.